class. Today we're going to talk about the tactical techniques that you use for your startup. And so we're going down the road, but what's waiting for us? And so first I'll talk about the Lean Sigma to give you an example, which actually happened with the closed loop control pump, bootstrapping, and something I call the fog. And what the fog is when your business doesn't grow evenly. What do you do and what happens? So what are entrepreneurs challenged with? And what Reese talks about is that they lack market insight, that technical people think if they build it, they'll come, and that's not true at all. They don't know how to execute well in terms of time, money, people. And also, they don't understand metrics. They don't want to measure anything. They just want to go by feel. And so Reese came up with this methodology he called the Lean Sigma. And basically what he did is he applied Six Sigma techniques to the entrepreneurial startup. And so the Lean Sigma is predicated on these 5 principles: that entrepreneurs are everywhere, that entrepreneurship is about management, validate your learning, measure your innovation, and build, measure, and learn. And so in terms of management, it's about how do you measure your progress? Is there a need? And how much value am I actually creating? And so what he proposes is that you work in small batch sizes. You do short loop experiments. You figure out what the root cause is. Essentially, don't work on symptoms, work on the actual problem. And the direction of work you pick is based on proving your hypothesis, meaning your startup is a proposal. So the question is that proposal, can it be solved? He talks about the 5 whys, and that's if you want to find the root cause to something, just keep asking why. And I know it sounds like my grandkids, but why? Because they only pick up on Wednesday, but why? So on and so forth. There's only one little problem with the 5 whys, and that's that it leads to linear thinking, that each why you ask pretty much follows one thread of thought. But the thing about a lot of questions or a lot of junctions you reach, it can go in many different directions. You might actually be looking at this. And so in a later lecture, I'll talk about how you really should view it, that you should look at it in terms of reducing the space. Validated learning is about demonstrating progress in your startup. These are the questions you ask yourself, and it's about the cycles of work you've done. And so can you get information feedback in real time? Can you find metrics where you can actually measure things? And so this is about A/B testing, which is, do I pick option A or B, or can I blend the two of them? Cohort. Each time you do a series of experiments, they go out as a set. And so you measure the set before you go to the next set. And so on and so forth. Now they talk about fail faster. Fail faster drives me nuts, because what it does is, yes, I know they created this mentality for the simple reason people were afraid to do experiments. So don't be afraid. Go ahead and fail faster. Oh, to hell with that. I don't want people to fail faster. I want people, when they fail, feel sick to their stomach and want to puke. What it comes down to is, no, you don't want to fail faster. You want to learn quicker. And the way to think of learning quicker is, first of all, every experiment you do is about cycles. So what is the time you need for experiments, and how many of those cycles do you actually need? So your total time is the number of cycles times your cycle time. And so the question is how can I speed those up? Can I reduce the time, or can I reduce the number of cycles? And feedback helps you reduce the size of your experiment, and then figure out how much you actually have to spend to pull it off. The thing is, this is a way to look at these kind of experiments. when you start a bunch of experiments, look at what's in parallel and what's in series. The thing is, things in parallel are things you can do the same time. They're independent of each other. Like look at your marketing versus work on your product. May not be related. So you can work on these things at the same time. And so that means if I get more people or whatever, I can actually go faster. Now, once I figure out what I can do in parallel, then it's series. And the thing about series is it's an onion. And that's that you have to do things in order. The thing is, you can say, I think the problem is in the third layer of the onion. But how can you tell? Because the only thing you can see is the first layer of the onion. And this is where a lot of people make bad experiments. Part of the reason why in IT, you're talking to some guy and the first thing he says to you, is your computer plugged in? And you think, what an idiot. But the point is in the absence of no information, that's the first step. Because if your computer's not plugged in, who cares about the BIOS system? One example that I went through is we were doing vacuum sealing. And what happened is the package ended up failing after a week or two. So what these physicists proposed is that there was outgassing, that the material inside the package was slowly leaching out of the walls, and it was causing the vacuum to fail. And so they wanted to do this whole series of experiments about bakeouts and things like that. And I said, no. How do you know the package isn't leaking? That it's a very, very slow leak. And so that's the onion. Essentially, you first, if the package isn't sealed, it doesn't matter how much outgassing you're going to do. You're never going to figure it out. And this is why there are things in series. There's a certain sequence, and that's what I refer to as the onion. Innovation accounting is about how do you measure progress. So it's about your MVP, your experiments, and then once you get your data, do you keep fighting after it, or do you pivot to something else? The thing about your situation, it's never stable. So do I stay the course or do I veer off? And what pivoting is a change in your strategy without changing your vision. The thing is, a pivot can take place on any of the three dimensions of your company. A pivot could take place in strategy, it could take place in marketing, or it could take place in product development. But the thing is, there has to be a catalyst to make it change. Something must have happened. And then it's about economic opportunity, meaning is the other direction better than what you're currently doing? And so in terms of strategy, here are some examples, like I'm running out of money, my investor's unhappy, marketing, I'm not getting good traction, the growth is too slow, or product development, I have a problem with my product. So how big a change do I need to make? Don't make changes for the wrong reasons. Meaning a lot of people will just make changes for the sake of changing because they're panicking. You have to maintain your discipline. And remember, you're part of a team. Whatever you choose to do, remember to integrate everyone else together. Because if they don't feel like they're part of the process, they're not going to buy in, and then you're going to have problems. Some evaluations of pivoting this is where actually looking your business model canvas pays off. And so here are some of the questions that you need to look at to see whether or not should I be pivoting right now. The things that I expected to see, are they actually happening, or do I have a problem? The thing is, in order to be in a position to pivot, your organization needs to be agile. And what I mean by agile means you can respond to a new situation quickly. This is supposedly the big advantage you have as a startup. But if you haven't built it into your startup, then you don't have any advantages. And so, for example, Walmart wants a new enterprise system. Well, the thing is, if I talk to IBM, they're going to assign a rep, I'm going to fill out forms, and there's a long procedure I have to go through that they don't break from. Whereas in an agile startup, I can empower my salespeople. Go ahead, you can make the deal on the spot, don't worry. And not only that, but at IBM, if you want to talk to somebody who actually makes products, good luck with that. An agile startup, maybe you have connections to everything. Pivots can be large and small. And in your book, it talks about some of these things in terms of web and mobile channel evaluation, for example. You look at all of these and you look at the growth. And so do the numbers say keep going, or is the growth so small, gee, I could put my money in other places and invest in that. So in terms of some examples of companies that pivoted, Flickr was actually a role-playing game, and then they found out that instant messaging with photos caught on. YouTube was originally a dating site, tune in, hook up. But then they found out that ads and everything else weren't making them money, and they found out the videos were actually the big selling point, so they pivoted. Groupon was actually a site for social mobilizing to get people to petition. They found out they couldn't make enough money, and so they started posting daily deals to get interest, and they found out that caught on. And Pandora's been through many, many different models and has survived. The granddaddy of all pivoters is Nokia. Nokia, and this is what I mean by it's a course correction, but you maintain your vision. And the vision of Nokia has always been that they want to be at the center to support their nation's infrastructure. So in the 1800s, they started out in wood. And then they found rubber was becoming popular, so they switched over into rubber. And that rubber was about insulating wires, so they got into electricity generation. And naturally, the next extension was phone cables. And being in the phone business, and they expanded into electronics, they thought that was going to be a big thing. And phone networks. And then they were working on a wireless communication project for the military, and they merged with another wireless company, and they found Nokia. And Nokia 1100 sold over 200 million units. And then what happened is they started having struggles. The smartphone came out with Apple and BlackBerry. So they thought, well, should we stick it out, or should we do something else? And they realized that they were better off doing something else, because should we compete with them, or should we go compete with Siemens and Philips and basically the old European dinosaurs? And so they sold to Microsoft, and now they're focused on networking. Here are some techniques from your book. I'm not going to go through it. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think I'm sure if I assigned Reese a semester, but for those of you who haven't read it, you should have read it. But these are some of the techniques that Reese talks about to figure out whether or not you should pivot. Here's an example of a company that pivoted to failure. In Surfect Technologies, we had a special electrodeposition system using ultrasonic technology. We use specialized waveforms to do deposition in small features and faster than anybody else could. And so what happened is we knew that we needed to get 13 tools to break even, and we had 2. The big advantage we had is tools like this cost over $2 million. Actually, there was no tool like ours, but we had the 150K tool. Most tools cost $2 million. And I wrote an article for Semiconductor International, which was a trade magazine that everybody in the semiconductor business read. And much to my surprise, the editor picked it as his editor's choice paper. And then we got interest. And what happened? We were trying to sell to the big manufacturers like Intel and all, and they were killing us. I mean, they wanted free tools for a year. They wanted 2 people full-time for free to watch those tools. And they said, well, after a year, we'll decide if we want to buy one. Well, we're a startup. We didn't have that kind of bandwidth and money. And then because of that article, a guy showed up on our doorstep, and he told us there's an undermarket, and that there are mid-sized electronics companies who couldn't afford the mega tools. This guy wanted to buy 3 tools off the bat. That's 3 tools towards the 11 I needed to break even. And not only that, he said he was going to go help promote us. He just absolutely loved it. It solved all his problems. And then my CEO shut it down. He said, no, we want large corporate customers. We don't want to deal with a bunch of little companies. So we pivoted. And where we pivoted to next is we landed Samsung. Oh my God. If I die of lung cancer, you're going to know why. Those Koreans really know how to party and smoke. Anyway, so he went to a large company. I found us a large company. And there we were, making the final deal. Document was written up. He just had to sign. And Samsung was going to purchase anywhere from 10 to 50 tools. Not only that, this was only one division of Samsung. We could have marketed to the other divisions. And to show their good faith, they were going to give us $250,000 up front. Samsung never gives money to anybody. So what happened? He said, nope, I don't want to be in the semiconductor business. It's too hard. Let's go into the solar business. So we pivoted again. And this time when we pivoted, we found Good Energies, which was $1 billion solar fund. That was, I won't go through the long story, but that was crazy. It's, well, one of many times in my career where I came up, I just thought of a solution to a very big problem in solar metallization. And so here's a representative and one of the chief technical people for $1 billion solar fund out of Germany. It's one of these old German families. The thing is, they're the golden investor. They said, if these guys throw in for you, you will not fail, because they won't let you fail. But the guy just started staring at me, and he said, I cannot tell if you are a genius or if you're totally full of shit. Yeah, I never heard it referred to that way before, but anyway, he got cold feet. He didn't want to do what they wanted to do and said, no, we need to get sales first. And so at that point, there was a new pivot for the company. Both the CFO and I quit because we realized the CEO just wasn't interested in making a company. He was just interested in the whole startup thing. But every time he came close to us where it came down to, okay, we're going to find out if we're a real company, he would always get cold feet. But this is a case of where there was no point to any of those pivots. The thing is, as a company, you have 3 opportunities to make it big and be successful. That's a shame. Anyway, I'll continue this talk in the next lecture.